You've heard of the Dream 100 trick for building your business. Well, today we're going to talk about using podcasting to nail your Dream 100 strategy right here, right now. It's On Air Brands.
You are now tuned in to the On Air Brands podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the On Air Brand Show. I'm Todd Giannattasio, along with my co-host Amber Fuhriman. What's going on, Amber?
Hey, what's going on, man? So sorry about the big bang you just heard in your ear as I dropped my phone trying to get ready for your intro. Sorry
Well,
about
right.
that.
Your iPhone dropped next to your new MacBook that you're
It's
on today. You've
amazing.
officially made the switch, put the PC on the shelf.
I did.
Good
So
news.
funny story. So I was really concerned about the ability to make this switch in the legal profession.
Mm.
And in my head, like attorneys just all used PCs still. And so I'm in this immigration attorneys group and I put this post up. I said, "Hey, has anybody made the switch from Mac or from PC to Mac? And what were the pitfalls that you needed to be aware of? And all of the things that I had in my head I needed to know." And as of now, it has about 45 comments on it,
Whoa.
and 43 of them are calling me a dinosaur.
Oh, that's great. I was going to say you're really cutting edge switching to the Mac here, but I guess, not always.
Cutting edge switching to the Mac. I just started using Google
I know.
Words, like Google Docs. I don't know.
Words.
Google Words. You guys, I promise I am not as technologically inept as I sound.
You look great for a 75-year-old
I
woman.
know,
I gotta
it's
say.
true. It's true. Yes, the Google Words are good to me.
Oh my goodness.
All right, on that note, what are we going to talk about today?
All right, so today the classic Dream 100 from the legendary sales book, The Ultimate Sales Machine, which I highly recommend everybody pick up and read at least once. I have a physical copy and audio copy, and I try to go through both of them at least once a year. Part of that book, they talk about this Dream 100 strategy, which has kind of taken off on its own and gotten its own legs over the years. And you want to talk about what that is real quick for the people who don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea of the Dream 100, and if you've heard this term before, which many of you may have, I feel like it's, Todd said took on a life of its own, which it has, but it's also had all of these different versions of it that has come out. But I think at its core, the Dream 100 is making a list of the 100 people that if you were to connect with, they could change your business now. And that could be clients, it could be people that you want to collaborate with, it could be B2B relationships. Like there's no right or wrong answer to what goes on this list, but it's the 100 people that you need to connect with now. And I think the secret and the tip to actually getting to this 100 instead of like 12, which is where my list normally ends, or used to end, is those names that pop up in your head. They before you can put pen to paper. Guys, it's a rough
I was gonna say, I thought it was gonna be like a writing utensil battle where you just have like pencils and pens fighting each other.
No, before you can put pen to paper, that thing goes off in your head that says, "Oh, like that won't work. They'll never talk to me."
Mm-hmm.
Like that name still goes on the paper. So it is, regardless of how achievable you think it is right now, it's the 100 people that if you were to connect with them now would change your business in your life.
Yeah, exactly. And then the idea in the book is then dedicating as much time and focus and energy to connecting with those people and doing business with them, right? And so today we're going to talk about how to use your podcast to execute the Dream 100 strategy. And I think really, you kind of touched on a couple places, and the Dream 100 really should work for outside of what we're talking about here today. Just Dream 100ing is great for any business. But the way to really capitalize on it with your podcast that we'll talk about today is, I think there's 3 different types of people that it's really great for. Number one are businesses who rely a lot on networking, strategic relationships and strategic partners, word of mouth and referrals from strategic partners, right? So a business like your law firm, for instance, like a lot of legal business, attorney clients, whatever, they come from other attorneys who don't practice in the same area that you're an expert in, right? So you guys are always passing clients along to each other and that kind of stuff. The next one I have on the list here is like the higher ticket, quote unquote, B2B and enterprise kind of sales, where there's a long sales cycle, right? It's not just like cold calling and making sales or first interaction, second interaction, but something that has a long sales cycle of months, if not years, right? Like a lot of B2B companies, they're making, and enterprises, they make purchase decisions every 18 months or every 3 years on certain types of products and services. And so if you have that type of life cycle, it's like, well, you don't show up on their door the day before that 3-year buying cycle's up, right? You have to show up on their door today so that you can spend the next 18 months to 3 years building the relationship and being in position for the buying decision. And so the long sales cycle, higher ticket stuff for B2B and enterprise, especially when getting in touch with someone at the company is difficult, right? Like if you're trying to get into, clinical trials for pharmaceutical companies or something along those lines, like it's very difficult to get through. I mean, the technology firewalls that they have preventing outside spam and the relationships to get in, right? Like, so when you're trying to create relationships and get in the door on companies, that's very difficult to just cold knock, cold call type of stuff. And then lastly, I think investors, whether it's real estate investors or, raising money for startups and that kind of stuff. But again, it's like a long relationship. You're looking to attract and cultivate the right type of people to be involved and bringing them into the fold. And the reason that podcasting is great is because when it's hard to get in touch with someone, they're much more likely to respond and be a guest on your show than as if you're saying like, hey, can I come in and give you a sales presentation? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where some of the past episodes that we've done really start to fit together in that puzzle piece, or just to poke at you a little bit, Rubik's Cube kind of way. No, this is where they really start to fit together, because we talked about the power of building relationships. We talked about the long game of what podcasting is and a follow-up strategy that you can have to really build those relationships. What podcasting does is opens those doors that you were just talking about that have traditionally been closed.
Yeah.
Everything we're talking about here is the long game. And we've said it before when it comes to podcasting, but when you're talking about your Dream 100, if you really wrote that list the way you should have wrote that list, you're really talking about the long game in a way that I don't think we've dug into before.
Yeah, for sure. And so I put these down as bullets. I should have put numbers. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I kind of broke this down into 6 steps that we can go through. And we've actually gone into a lot of these in the past in full episodes. So make sure you guys go to onairbrands.com/show and search around through the episodes to dive deeper into these topics. But we'll start off with the full list and then we can kind of go through each step. But number 1 is make the list, right? Like make your Dream 100 list. And like you said, I think this is where a lot of self-limiting beliefs can come into play, where we don't think about like, oh, that's like the dream. Like I could actually work with that person or be partners with that person. So, come up with that list of try to get to 100. But if you only get to 50, fine. Like just start with whatever you can get. But, don't limit yourself. Like put Elon Musk on there if you want. There's great stories. Our friends over at Hustle and Flowchart podcast, which just changed over to Hard Fork Media. But Joe Fear and Matt Wolf, and they talk about that they put their Dream 100 into a Google Sheet and they put it in their email signature. So now every time that they email with anyone, it says, I forget, I'd have to go back and read their signature, but it says like, P.S. do you know anyone on this list we're looking to connect and network with to have them on our show? And you click on the link and it opens up their Dream 100 with like Elon Musk is on there, which they haven't gotten in touch with yet, but there have been epic guests on their show because they made that Dream 100 list and people they were friends with clicked on that link and was like, oh, I know someone who might be able to connect them here. Right. And so making that list, no matter how far-fetched it might seem, that's the first step in the process.
Yeah, it is. And I just want to highlight really quickly what you said in that email signature, because I think it's really important. Their email signature didn't say, hey, do you know anybody on this list? Because I want to have a conversation with them about how we could work together.
Right.
Their email signature said, hey, do you know anybody on this list? Because I want to give them a platform to talk about what they do.
Right.
And there's a big difference between those two. We've talked about in other episodes the intention that you have going into podcasting. But when we talk about the Dream 100, there is no other place where it is more important to come in with a relationship building intention,
Yeah.
because these people that are on your list are constantly being approached for things, and they can sniff out ulterior motives like nobody's business.
Yeah, it's the classic cheese and whiskers analogy from Dean Jackson, right? A mouse is hardwired to run towards cheese and away from whiskers, and if somebody thinks that you got whiskers on, they're turning and running the other way.
It's true. It's true. I have actually never heard that, but I
Really?
love it.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah,
It must have been in those Google words I hadn't heard about.
Yeah, we can have a whole episode on that in the future too, because I love that whole concept. So, all right, so you've made your list of your dream people, and yourself or VA or whoever, you can fill in some contact information so you could start outreach. And this is an area we've talked about before on like reaching out to get guests on your show. And I know you have a really great process for reaching out and following up, which is a couple steps ahead of where we are now. So what is a good message and way to reach out to people that you want to have on your show as a guest?
So I think that the biggest thing, and this was the hardest for me, and I have a feeling that it's going to be the hardest for a lot of people, is approaching from a this is what I can bring to you standpoint instead of a this is why I want you on my show. And when you're first starting, or when you're reaching out to somebody that you perceive as much more successful than you on this path that you're on, sometimes it's hard to be able to acknowledge the value that your show and your platform can give them, because they have so many other opportunities. But don't overthink it. Like, spend some time looking at their social media, spend some time getting to know who they really are and what they need. I've heard of people who have had artistic abilities, and they were scanning through and they saw something that they thought could be improved from a social media aspect, and they attached that to the email. It took them like 5 minutes to draw up this sketch. They attached it. It's this reciprocity type thing. If you reach out and say, hey, I think that you would be a really good guest for my show, and I think my audience would really learn a lot from you, and I think that it would help my show, they're going to shut you down in a heartbeat, because it's all about you. What about them is why they would want to come on the show?
What's the
And I think
cheese?
that's the big, what's
the cheese?
cheese?
What's in it for them? What's the cheese? And to say, and to bring them on in a way. And I think, how you position your show's value proposition to your audience is also important here, because you're bringing them on because you want to have them on as a subject matter expert and share their story and insights on a particular topic. And then that automatically makes a lot of sense, one, for your audience to hear it, and two, for the conversation that you can have with them. And then that's how you can create this relationship. And it's not just about that first outreach, but, like any kind of sales type of stuff, like it requires a lot of follow-up, right? So connect with them, learn about them, send customized messages, be consistent and polite, offer them value, all the kind of stuff we're always talking about on the show. And then that's how you're going to be able to create those opportunities and get people onto the show. So,
yeah. And I say this with a little bit of hesitation. So please, if you're listening to this, understand that it's not meant to discourage anybody. If you are sitting there saying, I really want to reach out to this person, I just don't know what value my show has, you are not ready to have them on your show. And you need to take some time to think about that. And it may be because if they do say yes, let's say you get a hold of somebody that has a break in their schedule or really has a connection to you and wants to get you on the show. If you don't have a clear idea of how you can add value, your interview is going to be a fanboy or fangirl situation. And it's not, you're not going to know what to say. Make sure that you can clearly identify what you bring to the table and don't fake it. And if you can't, then wait to reach out until you can.
Yeah. So you've done your outreach, you've gotten them to reply, you get them, you coordinate a time. Recording can be as simple as a straight up go on Zoom and talk to them. Even with a free Zoom account that you have your 45-minute limit, have a 20-minute conversation and record that. And that can simply be, if you're getting started doing DIY. It can also be as advanced as having like a whole legitimate production setup. go to onairbrands.com to talk to Eric and the guys there so they could help you get set up with, a full all-out professional production suite and all that kind of cool stuff. But it can start off simply with just, decent camera, decent audio, decent light, and a Zoom recording that you then put up on YouTube, and onto Anchor, Buzzsprout, wherever you choose to host. We're not going to get into those technicality things today, but don't overcomplicate the recording. Like, go on Zoom and record it. Everybody's used to it at this point. It makes it super easy.
Yeah, and take the things that you might see as not ideal in your situation and turn those into strengths. I have avoided doing in-person interviews in Vegas for so long because I don't have a dedicated podcast space. And I finally decided to turn my second bedroom, my office, into a podcast space. And this came because I went to an in-person podcast as a guest, and it was held in this guy's studio apartment. And I remember walking
Not called
in,
a studio apartment for nothing,
right? And I remember walking in and thinking, man, I asked him, I said, have you ever had guests that became uncomfortable coming to your studio apartment? Because I have an extra bedroom and I am afraid to bring people to my house for what it looks like. And he says, no, it's actually a conversation piece. He says, they come in and they're like, man, I remember what it was like when I was hustling out of my house or out of my studio apartment. So the things that you think of that are like, hey, I'm not where I want to be, the people that you're connecting to can identify with that. So use those as strengths.
And it can also be a much more comfortable setting, right? And you get to write off your cleaning lady now. So
yes, it's
you
true.
Get that as a bonus, right?
It's true. And it was a great interview, by the way. So I say that, and I just want to throw in, I was not knocking his studio apartment at all. It was great.
Yeah. And so you've recorded your episode, and now it's all about the post follow-up, which we've done in previous episodes. So onairbrands.com/show to check out the previous episodes. But you have a great process. Can you give us like the nutshell, high level on you've recorded your episode? Now what happens with the guest?
Yeah. So this is where I spend the most of my investment in my podcast, the production of it afterwards. So I have assets that are created. I publish both video and audio. So throughout the editing process, my editor will take out clips, and he makes sure that at least one or two of those clips highlight just the guest. And then he pulls out some for me separately. We create a Google Drive folder for all of the social media assets that we create, and we later give those to the guest. But there's this follow-up strategy where we're tagging them in social media. So we get done recording, we send them a thank you, we tell them what to expect. We do 30-day and 60-day follow-ups with them. Many times their podcast has come out by then. If there's any reviews that come in that are dedicated to that podcast, I make sure that I share those with them.
That's smart. I like that.
This was something that somebody got out of this. Just continuing to touch that relationship. The Google Drive of saying, hey, here are some assets that will set you apart. I don't care whether it's a Calendly Instagram post that you create or whether you put in the investment to have video assets done.
Canva Instagram post. I just want to.
What did I say? Calendly?
You said Calendly.
Good Lord, you guys. I am so sorry. I don't know where my mind's at today.
I think you missed your coffee today.
I did. I did miss my iced tea.
Yeah.
We had this coffee conversation.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. I blocked that out.
You did. So long story short, figure out what you can do to add value to them. And do it and then give it to them.
Yep, exactly. And so the post follow-up is, it kind of happens in two spots. So you talked about the post follow-up directly with the guest, right? Like, let's send them these things. Let's send an email. I think a lot of easy touch points are, hey, thanks for being on the show yesterday. We're going, polishing it up and getting it queued up. It should be ready in X amount of days or weeks. Then leading up, you could say, hey, it's scheduled. It's coming out next week. Hey, your episode is live today. Here's the link, right? So you have easy touch points for multiple follow-up where they're going to open it and read it and likely respond at least with just an, okay, hey, thanks. And what that's doing is building these micro communications and building up a relationship that you have with this person, because now they're being primed as like, oh, when Amber emails me, I'm going to open it and see what it says and reply. And up till now, it's been 100% value in their direction, right? Mm-hmm. Then when it goes up, hey, it's live. Here's the links. Here's your assets, et cetera, all that great stuff you just talked about. That's your one-on-one conversation for the relationship follow-up. But what's also happening is your episode goes live. and that week you post a couple different clips and graphics and you tag them on the socials. So they're getting tagged in social, which is super great because they're seeing you promote them to your audience. Again, like you're adding more value. You're also seeing them, or they're seeing you in multiple channels, which is super important. So they're seeing you in their inbox, they're seeing you on social. And we talked about this in other episodes where we just talk about, the omnipresence with your audience. But when you have someone, when you're seeing someone in multiple different places, it tricks our brain to feeling like you're more of an authority, but two, they're more familiar and you have a stronger relationship. So because they're seeing you in their inbox and on Instagram and on LinkedIn and on Facebook and on Twitter or wherever, even if it's just two of those places, the inbox and a social channel, there's going to be a stronger sense of relationship there because they're seeing you in different places, which is super important. And you go out that first week with those initial tags, but their insights that they shared and your episodes are most likely going to have some evergreen quality value. So yes, promote it that first week, but then add it into the rotation. So you're posting and tagging them, 1, 2, 3 times a month with a little space in between. And then that's just like a very friendly nudge of value and reminder to them that is like, oh yeah, Amber. Oh yeah, Amber. And like they see you constantly promoting them over time.
There's so much we could talk about here, and we could probably make a whole episode on it. We did talk about a lot of this in the promotional episodes that we've done, but this is where creating a compilation post comes in. If you've got 4 or 5 guests that had really great things to say on a particular topic, put those together. You could even replace a weekly podcast episode with that. Put
Yeah,
those
you know what?
together, tag those in a social media post, and then they get to meet each other. But
Man, I was just gonna say, you took the words out of my mouth. Even if you don't do it on social, which you could do it in this whole compilation, what if you just in part of your follow up is all right, you have the lead up follow up with email, then the post promos, it goes out, then you're tagging them on social. And then what if a few weeks, you said you do your 30, 60, 90-day follow ups. What if in addition to that, or in one of those, you're like, hey, Amber, I loved our episode together where you talked about X. And I had another guest that talked about why. I think you guys would be a great fit to just to meet each other. Would you mind sending an intro? Right? Or would you mind if I introed you? I think it'd be great for both of you. Now you're adding even more value for both of your guests, 2 birds with 1 stone here, and really taking it to the next level.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that I do in this area, and it requires, if this is going to be successful, that the follow-up has been done up to the spot. So I invite every single one of my podcast guests to go through my podcast listings. And if there's anybody on there that they've been trying to connect with, if there's anybody that I've interviewed that's on their Dream 100, to let me know, and I will reach out to that person and see if they're interested in making a connection. If I didn't have the follow-up set, when I reached out to that person to ask if they were interested in a connection, I might get like a 25% response rate because what's Amber messaging me for now? Also, with what you said, if that's asking them to do the work, which is totally fine, but when you do the work and say, hey, this person came to my mind, that takes another step towards I listened to you.
Exactly.
But then think of ways that you can do things that add a personal touch. So about a year ago, when I started making it a point when I went to networking events to find like 5 people that I knew that I really wanted to continue connecting with. And I would, when I got back, send them a message on social media. And then I would ask for their address and I would send them a handwritten card. And the response I got from that was incredible. So then I added that to my podcast strategy. So I have a Google form that all of my guests fills out that keeps all of our assets for production all in one spot. And part of that Google form is I would love to send you a thank you gift. Can I have your mailing address? And if they choose to enter that in there, then I send them a handwritten thank you card. And that little thing, it doesn't have to take a lot. It takes 10 seconds to write. But that will set you apart from all of the other people who are reaching out to them.
Yeah, I love that. And so, all right, we talked about episode promos here. I think another thing which we didn't mention, we don't do on this show because we don't really have guests, but I think you'll also hear a lot of times on podcasts where there's a guest and you say, if you like this episode, share it on social and tag the guest and let them know how much, and that's another thing that will help them show. Like you said, when you get reviews in for that episode, you forward those over. Same thing can be like, if you like this episode, post and tag us on social, is always cool.
Yeah. The other thing you can do too, if you have communities or if you have a following where you want to support a cause. So I had a guest once whose book sales all went to a charity for veterans. And so I ran a promotion for engagement in my community and said for each person that posts something about this book that you liked and tagged, or about this interview that you like and tagged the guest, then I'll send you a free copy of their book. Because then, you know, I'm putting a little bit of mine in there, but I know it's going to a good cause. And then it's also supporting in a win-win-win situation.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So the last thing on my list here, which is kind of a culmination of the last couple of things we talked about, but it's the long-term follow-up and business development, right? And so we're talking about this as the Dream 100 for people you want to be doing business with. Now, if it's strategic partners and referral partner type of things, just having the relationship and having an ongoing conversation around your industry, that's going to be enough, right? So when they think of the stuff that you do and someone comes to them for, you know, immigration law, they're going to automatically think, you know, let me intro them to Amber because you have the relationship and you're in touch with them regularly. When it comes to the long-term B2B and enterprise sales type of stuff, you know, you want to continue that, the follow-ups like we just talked about, but then even beyond that, right? Beyond the 30-day, like, hey, thanks for being on the show, you want to continue to nurture that relationship in a value first way. So make some notes about the episode, like treat the episode like it was your intro call with them. Take some notes on the things that they said that they're interested in, that they pay attention to, their insights. And when you see stories come up in the news, you know, in the industry news or whatever, forward that over to them and ask their thoughts, or just say, hey, I saw this and I know you were, you know, interested in this stuff. What'd you think? Or did you see this yet? Always coming value first. And as the relationship develops, like, hey, let's meet up for coffee. Let's have lunch. Let's do whatever. And your natural value first, you know, ongoing sales efforts there can just cultivate the relationship. And then when the opportunity arises where they talk about a problem that you solve, then you can start to, you know, you've already put the baseline and foundation there where they know, like, and trust you and value your insights, so that when that, you know, when those things arise, you can show them what you bring to the table and then start, you know, a more formal, quote unquote, sales process about what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And there comes a point in time in this process where you have to start being selective about where you spend your time. And, you know, what's really cool about the 30, 60, 90-day follow-up is you're getting to know who they are and whether or not it's a good fit for both of you to continue to invest your most precious resource, which is time.
Yeah.
Also on the guesting side, you know, you're going to have people reaching out to you, and you owe it to not only yourself and your platform and your guests to make sure that you're kind of that barrier and that filter to make sure that the people that are coming on your show are actually going to be a win-win. And it's really interesting because so many times we talk about this win-win idea, but then we give so much of ourselves. And I never understood it. And then one day I was sitting in an NLP class, and all of a sudden I had this huge epiphany that in order for it to be a win-win, it has to be a win for me. We give so much of ourselves to others.
Yeah.
So make sure that you're not putting so much effort into what you're doing for them without looking at that win-win. This is an incredible strategy, but it has to be done strategically.
Yeah. I can admit that going through my own reflections and coaching programs over the last 18 months, like allowing myself to receive is definitely a block that I have. And so, yeah, you have to make sure that you're not just 100% selfless, but that, you know, like you said, win-win. It's the law of reciprocity. It flows both ways, right? So, you know, you want to be, I like to be value first, giving first, but then you also need to be able to receive and make sure stuff is coming back.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be done with a purpose, because otherwise, you know, and I want to be very clear that the purpose that you're giving the value for isn't the ulterior motive that we were talking about in the beginning. You know, there's a difference between a purpose for doing things and some ulterior motive objective. If you realize that this relationship is not actually what you thought it would be in your Dream 100, then in order for you to accomplish the life, business, and relationship goals that you want and that you have, you need to replace that name with somebody that may be a win-win. And that doesn't mean that relationship's gone forever. It's just not right now. Is it a good fit for you?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And if that tickled your bones there, guys, go to successdevelopmentsolutions.com. That's Amber's site, where she has a lot more insights on this kind of stuff. design your life for success, like she just mentioned. So thinking through these kind of things is exactly what Amber helps people do. So make sure you go over to successdevelopmentsolutions.com if that's the kind of stuff you're interested in. If you like this podcasting for the Dream 100 strategy and you want to launch or grow your show, reach out to Eric and the guys over at onairbrands.com. And to check out the deeper dive on those other topics in previous episodes, that's onairbrands.com/show. And we will catch you guys on the next episode.
You are now tuned in to the